Hi, it's Julia here from Photography by Julia K. Harwood, and today we're going to do a tutorial on cloning. It's something that a lot of people have difficulty with, and my students are always asking me, how do I do it properly? This is quite a complicated picture that we've got here to clone from because I want to show you a lot of different techniques. So hang in there and let's have a look. So this is the image. Always duplicate your background layer. So I'm going to go Control J once I've clicked on the layer, and there we go. You may find during the broadcast here that when I do keystrokes, they usually come up in this left-hand corner so that you can actually see what I'm doing as well. Okay, so we've got an extra layer here, and we're going to go over to our clone tool. The clone tool is this stamp. On Photoshop and Elements, it's over on this left hand side. In Lightroom, it's over in this section on the Develop module. So go back, click on the clone tool. Up here, this little drop down box gives us the different brushes we can choose from. Normally I just choose one of the regular brushes. You can move the size here to create different sizes, and the hardness most of the time I have set to 0. There are a few occasions when we don't, but most of the time it's set to 0, so we're using a nice soft brush so we don't get those hard edges happening. The other way we can adjust the size of the brush is with our 2 bracket keys. The left one makes it smaller and the right one makes it bigger. Okay, there are 2 ways to sample an image and clone it. One is to use a fairly big brush and try and do it. The other is to use a small brush and sample often. I use the small brush method most of the time. However, there are some times that a big brush will work, so we'll look at both of them. Before you can start cloning, you have to sample a point. To sample a point, you hold down the Alt or the Option key. At the same time, you press your left mouse button once the cursor is where you want to clone from. So if I'm going to do this area here, I'm going to remove this man from the image. I might clone from here. So I'm going to just click in here, and that's my clone point. Now if I move my cursor, you may not be able to see because the cursor is highlighted, but there is actually a picture of what is being cloned in the middle of the cursor, so you can line it up with whatever else is there. So I'm going to just click now on a few places. Now as you notice, as I'm moving my cursor down, I'm actually starting to pick up the tree because my clone point started here but is now over here because it moves with my cursor. To avoid that, we'll go back, Control Alt or Command Option Z to go backwards. And we'll go back to our first clone point. So go Alt and left click. Now I'll bring this down. So now I will just do small sections. And then I will re-sample from somewhere else, making my brush a bit smaller, sample from down here, and slide up this way. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of an idea of what happens when you use a big brush. You see here we've got repeating patterns happening. We've got this V here and here. People learn to pick that up and know, and you see here and here that it's actually being cloned, which is why most of the time I use a smaller brush. Okay, so we're going to use a smaller brush here, and we're going to start with the top of the man. Okay, now there is a line running along here. So I can line this line up with it and take it through, and it will look very natural. If I then, we've got a wall here, actually we'll go to 100% because I like cloning at 100% if I can. As you can see, a lot more detail. You can see here we have the wall. Go back, click on the clone tool again. Now make it a bit smaller. Now we want the wall to continue over here. So we're going to click on the wall. Notice we've got a shadow section here and a light section. If I clone from here, then I'm going to end up with a shadow over here. So I'm going to clone from the light section and line it up and just gently clone. Okay, now here I've picked up part of the other one, so we have a recurring pattern. So again, I'm just going to make my brush smaller again, clone from above it, and just get rid of one of those so it doesn't look like it's a repeating pattern. Now here, this would look odd because we've got a wall here and a stone here. So we go to this bit, we click on the stone, and we line it up, and we tap. Now if I keep going, you will see the man's shirt starting to repeat itself. That's why we need to do lots of small, we'll click, line it up, do small bits. Okay. Now we're just going to clone a little bit under here just so that you can see that by doing it gradually you get a much nicer finish to your image, a much more natural looking finish to your image. Okay, so now we're going to leave that for a minute and come back down here to where the man's hands are and the bottle. Notice there's a shadow here. That shadow is caused by the man. So if we remove the man, we need to remove the shadow. If we go down a little bit further, we actually see his reflection in here. So we're going to have to remove his reflection as well. Fortunately, removing the reflection is very easy. So this is one place where we can use quite a large brush. And as long as the ocean, see how there's a difference in the colour from here to down here. So we'll try and keep the colour the same. So we're going to sample from about here. And then I can have plenty of room just to go over like that. Now if you have a look here, I've actually picked up a sharp edge. See, there's a sharp line here. That's because I've picked up this part of the frame here and cloned it into the image. So if you find you do that, you can go back and redo it. Or what I do is just choose another spot to clone from. So I'll come over here, making sure that my cursor doesn't go outside the frame. Otherwise I'm going to pick it up again. So I'm just going to click inside the frame, move down here, and go back over that area so that that's gone. If we go back up to the man, we also have patterns happening here. We've got the horizontal lines of the planks, and we've got the vertical lines or diagonal lines of the nails. So we want those patterns to repeat so that it looks natural. So I'm going to go up here and sample a point, and then I line up that line down here and go down until the bottle's gone and the reflection's gone. So line it up. Okay. Now you'll see there's a dent up here and there's a dent down here. So all we do is just resample and go back, and then it doesn't look like it's repeating. We want to repeat this pattern along here, so we select a spot, and then when I'm doing a bit like this, I try and always go from both sides so that one, it meets in the middle, and also it looks more natural. Okay, we've also got a bit of a shadow on the side here. So this is what the attention to detail that we need when we are cloning. Oops, now see there I have missed the line up, and you can see that the pattern is now jagged. Again, another giveaway. So I just go Control Alt Z or Command Option Z, resample my point, hold down my Alt key, left click on my mouse, line up the line, and then paint away. So as you can see, it can be fiddly, but it can also be very easy to remove someone as long as you are paying attention to the detail in the image. So here we've got a lot of repeating patterns because I haven't resampled from different spots. So I then need to go back and sample from a few different places to break up that repeated pattern look, while still keeping the patterns that we want there in there. And again, we're going to have to repeat this line of dots, otherwise it's going to look very odd. What we can also do is we can actually add a new layer to our mask. Down here there's this bit of paper with a corner folded up. If we click on that, it adds another layer. If up here we have sample all layers, then it will sample what's underneath. So we can work on this layer, and I'll show you why we would do this. So we click on here and go over here. All right. Now this is going further away and is getting lighter, even though it's darker now, but we want it to get lighter. So we can then just change the opacity of that layer and it blends in much better that way. So you can keep doing that. Now see, I'm still on that layer, and so I've got the lowered opacity. So I'm going to go back to my second layer, my duplicate layer, and clone from there because I want this to be at 100%. Always remember, if things go terribly wrong and it ends up looking like, oh no, what have I done? I've really messed it up. You've still got, if we turn off these two layers, you've still got your original layer there, so you can go back and start again. That's why we always use a duplicate layer. So that gives you a basic idea. I'll go back out to 100 fit screen. So you can see we obviously haven't finished that yet, but it's looking very natural. And that's the key, is just to take your time, look at the detail, sample from as many different places as possible, and watch for the edges of the frame and for repeating patterns. I'd love you to visit my website. It's www.juliaharwood.com, or subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.